Your doctor looked you in the eye at your last appointment, mentioned your cholesterol numbers, maybe said your blood pressure was a little high, and then handed you a prescription and sent you on your way. No mention of your diet. No mention of a single thing you could drink. Just a little white slip of paper and a wave goodbye. Here's what's interesting, though. In a landmark clinical study published in the journal Clinical Nutrition, patients with severely clogged arteries who drank a specific amount of one very common morning juice every single day for 1 year actually saw the thickness of their arterial plaque decrease by up to 30%. Not slow down, not stay the same, actually shrink, and their blood pressure dropped by 12% without a single medication change. So the question worth asking is this: if the research is this clear, why isn't your doctor telling you about it? I'm Dr. Sarah Mitchell, and this channel is dedicated to bringing you the latest evidence-based research on health and longevity, written specifically for people over 60 who deserve real answers, not just prescriptions. If you want to stay ahead of what the science is actually showing, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss what we cover next. Now, let's get into the answer, because I know that's why you're here. The morning drink we're talking about is pomegranate juice. Just 1 cup or about 8 ounces consumed every single morning. And I want to be very clear with you right from the start. This is not a miracle cure. This is not a replacement for your medications. And this is not some ancient secret being hidden by Big Pharma. What it is a food that has now been studied in dozens of controlled clinical trials, analyzed in multiple systematic reviews, published in respected peer-reviewed journals, and confirmed to have measurable, documented effects on the exact biological processes that lead to clogged arteries, high blood pressure, and heart attacks. That distinction matters. We're not talking about a folk remedy. We're talking about real science. Let me explain what is actually happening inside your arteries right now, because understanding this is going to make everything else in this video click into place. Atherosclerosis is the medical term for what most people call clogged arteries. It begins when the inner lining of your artery walls, a delicate single-cell layer called the endothelium, becomes damaged. Think of that lining like the smooth coating on the inside of a garden hose. When it's healthy and intact, blood flows freely. When it gets scratched, nicked, or inflamed, your body responds by sending cholesterol particles to the damaged area to patch it up, the same way you'd putty over a crack in a wall. Here's where the real trouble starts. The cholesterol particles that do the most damage are the ones that have been oxidized, meaning they've been chemically altered by harmful molecules called free radicals. Oxidized LDL cholesterol, which you might see written as OX-LDL, is far more dangerous than regular LDL cholesterol. It sticks to artery walls more aggressively. It triggers inflammation, and it gets gobbled up by immune cells called macrophages that then turn into what scientists call foam cells. These foam cells are the actual building blocks of arterial plaque. Over years and decades, this plaque accumulates, hardens with calcium, narrows the channel blood flows through, and eventually, if a piece of it breaks off and blocks a vessel entirely, you have a heart attack or a stroke. So, what does pomegranate juice have to do with any of this? Everything. And the answer lies in one of the most powerful concentrations of antioxidants found in any food on the planet. Pomegranate juice contains an extraordinary class of polyphenol compounds, including punicogens, anthocyanins, and ellagic acid. These are the specific molecules responsible for its deep ruby red color, and more importantly, for its remarkable effect on the cardiovascular system. Multiple independent research groups have found that these compounds directly target the oxidation of LDL cholesterol. In the Avarum study published in Clinical Nutrition, after just 12 months of daily pomegranate juice consumption, participants' LDL susceptibility to oxidation dropped by 59%. And an enzyme called peroxidase 1, which your body naturally uses to prevent LDL oxidation, increased in activity by 83%. Think about that. Not only did the harmful process slow down dramatically, but the body's own defense mechanism against it nearly doubled. Now, there's something else happening that is equally important, and it has to do with a molecule your body produces called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is your artery's natural relaxant. It signals the smooth muscle in your blood vessel walls to loosen up, which widens the vessels and allows blood to flow with less resistance, which directly lowers blood pressure. As we age, as oxidative stress builds up, nitric oxide production declines. The artery walls become stiffer. Blood pressure climbs. Research published by the American Heart Association confirmed that pomegranate juice actively enhances the bioactivity of the enzyme that produces nitric oxide, called nitric oxide synthase, in the endothelial cells that line your arteries. It also protects existing nitric oxide from being destroyed by free radicals before it can do its job. This is the mechanism that explains the blood pressure reduction seen across multiple studies. Comment below and tell me, do you currently have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or both? I want to know how many people watching this are dealing with one versus the other, because the protocol at the end will be relevant to both situations. Let me tell you about Eleanor. She was 71 years old and had been on a statin medication for 3 years when her cardiologist told her that her carotid artery, the one on the right side of her neck, showed signs of plaque thickening. Her doctor's response was to consider adding a blood pressure medication to her daily regimen. Eleanor's daughter, who is a nurse, came across some of the research we're discussing today and suggested Eleanor try adding pomegranate juice to her morning routine alongside NOT instead of her existing medications. After 8 months, Eleanor went back for a follow-up ultrasound. Her carotid intima media thickness, the measurement doctors used to assess plaque accumulation, had stabilized. Her systolic blood pressure was down 11 points. Her cardiologist was surprised. He didn't change her medications, but he didn't add any new ones either, and he told her, whatever she was doing, keep doing it. Eleanor was 71 when she started. Results like hers are exactly what science predicted. Now, let's talk about the blood pressure evidence specifically, because this is where some of the most consistent findings exist across the largest number of studies. A 2023 meta-analysis published in the journal Phytotherapy Research analyzed 14 separate clinical trials involving 573 individuals and found that pomegranate juice consumption produced a statistically significant reduction in systolic blood pressure of just over 5 mm of mercury on average. That might sound small, but here's the context that makes it meaningful. A 5-point reduction in systolic blood pressure is associated with roughly a 14% lower risk of heart disease events and about a 17% lower risk of stroke, according to data from the New England Journal of Medicine. 5 points matter enormously when it compounds over years. And before we get to the protocol, there's another piece of this story that I think is the most underappreciated of all: inflammation. Chronic low-grade inflammation in the arterial walls is now understood by cardiologists to be one of the primary drivers of heart disease, arguably as important as cholesterol levels. A 2025 randomized controlled trial conducted at Manchester Metropolitan University and published in the journal Nutrients studied adults specifically between the ages of 55 and 70 years old. Exactly the people watching this video, and found that pomegranate extract produced a statistically significant decrease in interleukin-6, which is one of the primary inflammatory signaling molecules associated with cardiovascular risk. IL-6, as it's abbreviated, is the same inflammatory marker that elevated CO-19 severity, and that cardiologists now monitor as a predictor of future cardiac events. Pomegranate reduced it measurably in older adults in a controlled placebo-based trial. That's significant. Here's something you need to know before we continue, because this next part may surprise you. The pomegranate juice you're imagining right now, the bottle sitting on a grocery shelf with bright red fruit on the label, may or may not be what was used in these studies. The difference in what you buy matters a great deal, and I'll cover that in the protocol. But here's what I need you to understand first. The benefits we're discussing are tied to the polyphenol content of the juice. Some commercial pomegranate products are diluted with grape juice, apple juice, or other cheaper fruit concentrates. Others are made from concentrate in ways that significantly reduce polyphenol levels. The label might say 100% pomegranate juice, while actually delivering a fraction of the antioxidant activity shown in studies. This is a critical point, and one of the main reasons doctors who are skeptical of dietary approaches can point to failed trials. They used inadequate products. Let me give you the context from the successful research. The Avram study that demonstrated 30% plaque reduction used 50 ml of concentrated pomegranate juice daily, which is roughly equivalent to about 240 to 250 ml, or 1 cup of high-quality single-source pomegranate juice with verified polyphenol content. More on how to identify that in the protocol section. A 2023 meta-analysis examining pomegranate's effects on lipid profiles, meaning cholesterol and triglyceride numbers, pulled data from trials representing thousands of participants and found that pomegranate consumption significantly reduced LDL cholesterol levels and triglycerides, while meaningfully raising HDL, the good cholesterol. The triglyceride reduction averaged 12.65 mg per deciliter, which in real terms means if your triglycerides are currently at the borderline high level of 150, regular pomegranate juice consumption could move you meaningfully toward the optimal range below 100. Not alone, not without dietary changes, but as part of a consistent daily practice. Let me now tell you about Franklin. He was 68, a retired electrician, and when his wife dragged him to his annual physical, his numbers were not great. His triglycerides were 187, his LDL was 138, and his blood pressure consistently came in around 148/92. His doctor prescribed a low-dose statin and encouraged him to reduce red meat consumption. Franklin did both, but he also started drinking 1 cup of pure pomegranate juice every morning with his breakfast. He was consistent about it, not occasionally, every single morning for 6 months straight. At his 6-month follow-up, his triglycerides had dropped to 141. His LDL was down to 119, and his blood pressure was averaging 136/84. His doctor, who hadn't specifically recommended the juice, attributed everything to the statin and the dietary changes. Franklin didn't argue. He just kept drinking his morning cup. Now, there is one genuinely important limitation I want to address directly, because I don't believe in hiding inconvenient data from you. Not every study on pomegranate has shown dramatic results. A 2025 updated systematic review noted that the evidence on LDL-C reduction specifically is mixed across trials. And the 2025 trial conducted at Manchester Metropolitan University in adults aged 55 to 70 showed significant improvements in inflammatory markers, specifically IL-6, but did not find statistically significant changes in blood pressure or lipid levels over the study period. This tells us something real and useful. The form of pomegranate product matters. The duration of consistent use matters, and individual variation in response is real. What the overall body of evidence does clearly support is that regular consumption of high-quality pomegranate juice produces meaningful improvements in oxidative stress, inflammation, and blood pressure, with more variable effects on cholesterol that appear most pronounced in people whose levels are already elevated. This is not a one-size-fits-all miracle. It is a real evidence-backed dietary strategy that works best when it's used consistently, when you choose the right product, and when it's part of a broader commitment to your cardiovascular health. Think about that for a moment, because I want to ask you something directly. When was the last time your doctor spent 10 minutes talking to you about what you eat and drink in the morning? If you're like most people over 60, the answer is rarely or never. That's not because doctors don't care. It's because they have 8 minutes per appointment and a waiting room full of patients. It's because nutrition education in most medical school programs is remarkably thin. And it's because there's no pharmaceutical company funding a multi-million-dollar advertising campaign for pomegranate juice. The research exists. It's in the journals. It's just not in the exam room. Now, here is exactly what you should do if you want to incorporate this into your morning routine. The first step is choosing the right product. You want 100% pure pomegranate juice with no added fruit juices, no added sugars, and no concentrates blended with other fruits. The gold standard brands that consistently test highest for polyphenol content include Palm Wonderful 100% pomegranate juice and Lakewood Organic Pure pomegranate juice. Both are available at most major grocery stores, including Walmart, Costco, Whole Foods, and Target. On Amazon, search specifically for 100% pure pomegranate juice and look for brands that explicitly state their polyphenol content on the label. If you are buying a pomegranate supplement in capsule or extract form rather than juice, look for products standardized to contain punicins and look for third-party testing verification from organizations like USP, NSF International, or Consumer Lab on the label. The second step is the amount and timing. Drink 8 ounces, which is 1 standard cup of pomegranate juice every single morning. Drink it with breakfast, rather than on an empty stomach to slow the natural fruit sugar absorption and reduce any blood sugar spike. Consistency is everything here. The studies that showed significant arterial benefits used daily consumption over periods of 12 months or longer. You will not reverse years of plaque buildup in 2 weeks, but within 6 to 8 weeks of consistent daily use, many people begin to see measurable improvements in blood pressure readings at home monitoring. The third step is what to watch for and measure. If you have a home blood pressure cuff, take your blood pressure at the same time every morning before your juice for the first 2 weeks to establish a baseline. Then continue taking it weekly. Track the numbers. If you have a cholesterol panel coming up in the next few months, tell your doctor you've added pomegranate juice daily so they can monitor changes alongside your usual blood work. The fourth step is understanding who should be careful. Pomegranate juice interacts with certain medications in a way that is clinically important. If you take the blood pressure medication file or any other calcium channel blocker in the same drug family, pomegranate juice can increase the concentration of those drugs in your bloodstream, potentially lowering your blood pressure more than intended. This interaction has been documented in research. If you are on blood thinners like Warfarin, also known as Coumadin, talk to your doctor before starting daily pomegranate juice, as the polyphenols may affect how that medication is processed. Additionally, because pomegranate juice does contain natural sugars, approximately 34 gram per 8 oz serving, people managing type 2 diabetes should monitor blood glucose carefully and may want to start with 4 ounces rather than 8 ounces while they assess their personal response. And as always, if you are currently on any cardiovascular medications, please do not stop or reduce your dosage based on anything you learn here. Add the juice alongside your existing treatment plan with your doctor aware of what you're doing. The fifth step is patience combined with other good habits. Pomegranate juice is powerful, but it does its best work in a body that is also getting enough sleep, moving every day, even if just a 20-minute walk, eating predominantly whole foods, and managing stress. None of those things are complicated, but they all work together. The research on pomegranate was conducted in real people living real lives, not in hermetically sealed laboratory conditions. The results are achievable. Here's the most important thing to take away from everything we've covered today. Pomegranate juice has been studied in rigorous clinical research and found to reduce arterial plaque thickness, lower systolic blood pressure by a meaningful amount, reduce the oxidation of LDL cholesterol that drives plaque formation, boost the body's own antioxidant defenses, and decrease the inflammatory signaling molecules linked to cardiovascular events. 1 cup every morning. That is a genuinely simple thing you can do starting tomorrow. If you are going to try this, I want to know. Comment the words starting below. If you already drink pomegranate juice regularly and have noticed a difference in your blood pressure or how you feel, share your experience in the comments because your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And if you have a parent or a sibling or a spouse who you think needs this information, comment the word sharing and send them this video. If this kind of evidence-based practical health information is what you've been looking for, subscribe to this channel and hit the bell so you're notified when we publish. Next, we're going to be looking at a specific magnesium deficiency that affects more than 50% of Americans over 65, and that cardiologists now believe is silently contributing to irregular heart rhythm and high blood pressure in millions of people who have no idea their levels are low. That video is something you will not want to miss. I'm Dr. Sarah Mitchell. Your health is worth the 10 minutes it takes to learn about it. Take care of that.